guiding me. And all of your words that you just spoke rings true with what I'm wanting to share with you today. And I think you'll hear a lot of what I'm saying just kind of repetitious about being in the center, and that we are human beings walking a path all together, all in oneness. So my occupation is in therapy in health and wellness, and I am a craniosacral therapist, and I specialize in helping through energy work and recognizing that we are spirit beings, that we are vibrational frequency, and so I work with that energy and actual hands-on body therapy. Craniosacral therapy is not known by everyone, but it is one of the most profound ways that you can balance your nervous system. So it helps reduce stress, reduce pain, anxiety, and just provide balance to our attitude, our demeanor, and how we walk through life. So that's occupational, but by my calling, I like to say that I'm a channel for divine spirit. And so I don't know that I've ever just spoken 20 minutes in my life. So I always come with more information than I have time for, but I allow the flow of spirit to guide me. And it's always based on who's here. So there's information that I may not be able to cover, and that's why I'm offering a workshop. It's a 2-hour workshop. It'll be on the 13th of this month at Rainbow Stew. Y'all know where that is? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So I invite you to come, and the flyer's on the table. We are all walking this earth in what I like to call an earth suit, which houses our inner being, our spirit, our soul. And so my topic today is around the labyrinth, but in the greater scheme of things, it's about energy and frequency and vibration and sound, and how all of those are healing. And we are all walking the great circle of life together. The labyrinth that I'm going to focus on today is a tool. It's a symbol, and it's a way to give us an exercise, if you will, to enter into a meditation, to take time for ourselves. It can be used anywhere, anytime, and in various ways. So many of you may have been exposed to a labyrinth that's on the earth or drawn in the ground. Some of you may have them at your home. We've been here 3 years in the desert, and the first year in the pandemic shutdown, we built a labyrinth in our backyard. So I first thought it was going to be for our own sanctuary, but Spirit has guided me to share, and so I hold personal one-on-ones as a labyrinth walk there, and also hold workshops, and I'm just 2 or 3 blocks away from the center. So we'll look forward to getting to know you guys more. Sacred geometry is a heavy subject, and I don't want to geek out on you too much. So what I brought was something that I use in my workshop, and it's just an overview, and I know the visuals aren't seen real well from the back, so you're welcome to come up later and look closer. But what I have here is just the broad stroke that underlies all of life, and we call it sacred geometry. And sacred geometry is a science that is the foundation for all life, for all that exists on our planet. I was reminded of a writer in Ecclesiastes that said there's nothing new under the sun. And that reference was the sun referring to our walk on the planet. And if you read that and know the true meaning behind it, the writer in Ecclesiastes was actually complaining. There's nothing new. There's nothing new going on. This has all happened before. Well, there was a lot of truth in that, because whatever we encounter, it may seem new or revolutionary to us, but you can be sure that it's not new. Everything that's ever created has already been there and has been created from the oneness, the source. But today I'm going to share some new things with you that I think you've perhaps not heard before. One of the symbols in sacred geometry is the labyrinth. Also the medicine wheel, of what we refer to often as the two sacred circles on Mother Earth. And I also do teachings on the medicine wheel. My teachings from both of those sacred circles come from many sources and many teachers and mentors over 40 years. A lot of those teachings come from the indigenous, but also European. And when I get more deeper into the origin of labyrinth or medicine wheel, contrary to what common belief is, they're not really originated from the indigenous culture, but more from Europe, Greece, and then back to Rome. And all cultures in all times have had a form of a labyrinth. And there are many models, I wouldn't say many, on one hand. One of the largest that's known, and you might be able to see this, but I'll leave it up here if you want to look later. In France, there's a labyrinth in the floor of the Chollar Cathedral, and it was built in about 1200. So labyrinths are 5,000 years old, as much as antiquity shows us. They are all over the planet. There are approximately, at the last reporting I read, 5,000 labyrinths in the United States alone, and many thousands in Canada. So, and even in our desert, in our high and low desert, there are labyrinths everywhere. Some of them are hidden, not on purpose, but you would have to hike to find them. And perhaps, have any of you ever run across a labyrinth when you've been out walking or hiking or in the desert? Yeah? Where was that?
Up in Rimrock.
Rimrock.
And beyond.
Okay. Sometimes they're on private lands, and sometimes you may make them yourself. If you've ever been walking and been in a very pensive, meditative state of gratitude, often what we'll do as a family when we walk out onto uncharted territory, if it's not private land, is we will draw in the dirt. We will get a stick or something and draw a circle, and we'll stand inside of it. And we may say a prayer or a blessing, and we're honoring all the peoples that had come before, and the indigenous. And often we'll stack a cairn of rocks, or I may form a little medicine wheel, or we may form a labyrinth, and we'll stand in the middle of it and do exactly what I'm going to guide you to do today. I hope to inspire you and tweak your imagination to delve a little deeper into sacred geometry. But for now, what is a labyrinth and how is it basically used? It's a spiral design that has one entrance. Allow me, I'm going to use a little pointer here, maybe it will help for you in the back. A labyrinth has spirals that go forward and back, and here you can see I've got a little arrow, is the entrance to this particular one. This is the Chollar Cathedral model. The handout that you have has a drawing at the bottom. It's called the Cretan labyrinth. So there are different maps or drawings or diagrams, if you will, but they all have the same concept. Paths that you follow that will twist and turn and eventually guide you to center. So in this particular labyrinth, there is a center point that's called a rosette. And you'll notice it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 petals. I could teach a whole workshop on just that rosette. And that center represents oneness. It represents what Joe started out talking about, the center of all. So essentially, why do we walk a labyrinth? For thousands of years, it's been used in all cultures, from temples to tribal ritual, to people in their own personal domain, as a meditation tool. A time to set aside that you walk into quiet and stillness, and you meet the center. And that represents meeting ourselves, going within, meeting our spirit, our soul, and also Creator and all of creation. Because we're all one, when we symbolically and metaphorically sit in the center of the labyrinth, we are connecting with all it is. So, just like this morning, we all got up and we made our way here to this building, this beautiful sacred center. We've all come into center. And our pathway this morning from when we got out of the bed is along the way, certain things happened to each one of you before you reached here and you walked through the front doors, and now you are seated in center of what we and you have designated and dedicated as sacred space. So what makes something sacred space? It is because we so ordained it from our center that it is so. This podium is sacred because I stood here earlier before you all came and I said a blessing and I consecrated it and dedicated it that I might be a channel. So it's a sacred space. So we do that throughout our life every day without really consciously thinking about it. We do ritual and ceremony every day. We celebrate important occasions, birthdays. So this morning we had a sacred ritual that we decided to do at a moment in time. We get to do that as humans. And yet, often we can walk through life unconsciously and not be aware of every single moment and every single breath that we have to be grateful for. So the labyrinth gives us a way to stop, take note of that, and connect. Historically, labyrinths and medicine wheels and circles, sacred circles, have been used in ritual and ceremony, but there's been a resurgence or a revival, if you will, of labyrinths, actually since the pandemic shut down. You will see labyrinths in hospitals today, in parks, in retreat centers, of course in churches, especially large churches. They will put them in the middle of the floor like you see in France. A lot of people don't know they're also in prisons. And there's been research done that inmates that enrolled in a labyrinth class reported being calmer, more in control, less anxiety, and less depression. There's a prison in Massachusetts that has a whole study around it of what happened with the prisoners there when they signed up for, I think it was a 3-week labyrinth walk. In the hospitals, we're seeing patients being exposed to handheld labyrinths or labyrinths that have been drawn on the floor of certain clinic areas, and it reduces their stress, it reduces their pain, and a whole host of benefits from walking the labyrinth. So we're seeing in our modern day a real revival of labyrinths. And so what happened in the shutdown period of the pandemic, handheld labyrinths and or diagrams and maps, they come in all fashion of production, wooden, I know some of you have seen the wooden labyrinths, kits to make them and so forth. Sales on those kind of products rose 300% in that first stage of people being shut down because anxiety went out the roof. And people today are still suffering from that. We still have the residual of that time, even though we're moving forward and we're walking, and as we walk this path, the twists and turns represent all of those interactions that we have in life. The ups and downs, the obstacles, the disappointments, the losses, and the way it goes. And when I lead you in the meditation in a moment, as you walk into the labyrinth, you see it will go, these are circuits. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 circuits in this grand model. The one that you have in your handout is the 7th circuit. And that simply means the outer edge and toward the center. So a lot of times that's determined by size. If it's put in a building or on the ground, or if we have it in a handout. So for a handheld labyrinth, it's just much more efficient to have a second circuit. So don't get too hung up on that, but as we are walking this path, there are many twists and turns. You're walking a path in life, and things are going on, looking good and so forth, and there's a turn that happens, or there's a twist, something you weren't expecting. So the labyrinth represents our world. It represents that walk that each one of us make. And it has benefits to us in many ways, but one of the things that happens physiologically, biologically, is our right and left brain begins to integrate as we walk the path. Because when you begin the walk, you're walking clockwise. You find yourself in center, and you pause. You would be meditating the whole time, but there's a specialness when you walk into that center, just as when you walked in here. The intention shifts. And then when you walk out, you're on the outward journey. Something happens differently to your right and your left hemisphere in your brain when you go counterclockwise and then you turn to go, clockwise and then counterclockwise. And this is where the ancient mystery, or sometimes called the ancient secret of the labyrinth, lies. Science can't completely explain it, but it's measurable and it's able to be tested of what happens to the right and left hemisphere. So biologically, physiologically, mentally, and emotionally, there are stories and stories for thousands of years of the experience that people have had walking the labyrinth. So I hope today to just kind of introduce you to a bit of that. Due to time, normally I would guide you in a longer meditation with this, but you have this to take home now. There's no right or wrong, no right way to walk the labyrinth. You simply enter, you follow the path, and you make your way to center. And then exiting, exiting, we call it return. So you can think of walking the labyrinth by 3 R's. The first phase, as you walk in, is releasing. And that's the notion of us letting go. We need to do that, don't we? Letting go of, individually, it would be different, each one of you. Our worries, our stress, what are we focused on? What's got our attention? Mentioning the grief class and so forth, we're in a time where we've all experienced, each of our circles have experienced loss just because of what's gone on in the health of our nation. So there is a collective consciousness of grief and grieving going on. Each one of us can make a difference with that, because as we reach the center, we know we are sitting with all that is and all people and oneness. So it's from that center and that place within that our spirit can reach out and send love and comfort and solace, and to those that are teaching those kind of classes and workshops. We're all walking our path and our purpose. So the first phase is releasing, and as you make your way towards center, it's receiving. And so as you pause at the entrance of going into the center, and in your diagram, it's got I put a little icon there for you. Before you actually step into that center, I like to invite you to pause. And I hear many words at that point. Listen to spirit, listen to what comes to you. It's never the same, because you're in a different place every time that you might sit and walk in meditation here. And you may walk on the ground or on a labyrinth on the land. You may do it on a piece of paper. You simply can draw it. Your thumbprint is a spiral. So you are always walking around with a labyrinth, not only in your thumb. So sitting in the car at a red light, or you're at the doctor's office, or, my husband and I go with each other a lot when we go to do our doctor visits or whatever we do. And oftentimes, instead of us grabbing our phone and work on it, we'll just walk the labyrinth in our phone. So we love doing that. And so if you've ever taken a thumbprint, which most of us have at some point, try it when you get home. Put some food coloring or something on and look at your fingerprint. Look at the spiral that it is. So you're never far away from a labyrinth. And then I want to say, in your body, I meant to not hang that there. When I go deeper in the workshop on how our bodies are created in circles, we're sacred geometry. Our very chakras spin in a clockwise direction. When we're out of balance or out of harmony, and we talk about chakras and chakra balancing, which most all of us as healers and therapists, we have some version or form of balancing the chakras. It's energy movement. But when some function of an organ or an emotion is out of balance, what is happening often is that chakra is spinning counterclockwise. And our very cells can spin counterclockwise. So the entire universe under sacred geometry is created, and the building blocks are sacred shapes, circles, triangles, over and over and over again. So in this small diagram here that you can't see from the back is what we call the torus. And is that we, as a human being, our body is surrounded by an electromagnetic field spinning. So when we're out of balance, we can be spinning in the opposite direction. And the labyrinth helps you when you go to the center. And this part you don't have to intend, you just receive it, that your right and left brain will respond to the inward motion and the outward motion. And you will feel it and experience it in your life. So I like to teach, when I teach it this way, this is a transparency of a labyrinth. That no matter what we lay over this labyrinth diagram in life, we see the labyrinth. This is a beautiful photograph there of animals, plants, minerals. The brain is in there, the bees, showing how circles and circles and circles is what our universe is created from. So the labyrinth is a symbol and a way for you to hold something in your hand or walk on the ground and connect with the entire universe, because that's what we are. From the Gale Encyclopedia of Alternative Medicine, there's a quote that walking the labyrinth has many benefits to the user. It allows a pause of left brain activity, which is that logical, analytical part of us that wants facts, that wants our ducks in a row, creates a lot of stress in our life, keeps us in that fight or flight state a lot of times. And we need the right brain activity of stopping, of going inside, of going into stillness, so we can integrate and come back out of that space with more energy, or joy, or peace, all of the things that you spoke about this morning. It goes on to say that encouraging right brain activity encourages imagination and intuition. So many people will walk the labyrinth to inspire their creativity. Writers, musicians will have a sitting meditation, something they're working on or creating, and they want that inspiration. It's used a lot for that. To walk the labyrinth is to re-enter the womb, it's the center, and travel inward. And then to come back out is a kind of rebirth. The circular path symbolizes the cosmos, completeness, unity, and the spiritual path or journey of our life. Another writer says, I would just settle for a small break from my monkey brain. Any of you ever feel that way? Yeah. So, as you, what's our time like?
It's all right.
How am I doing on time, guys?
It's okay.
Okay. As you look at your handout that I've given you, and maybe we'll turn the lights up. Can we do that so those in the back can see?
All right.
beyond 25 minutes now.
Okay. As you look at the top of that handout that I've given you, who would read that for me? Thank you.
With wonder before me, may I walk with compassion behind me. May I walk with courage beneath me. May I walk with light above me. May I walk with love all around me. May I walk as I walk. May I be.
It's often called the I am poem or quote as well. And I love all across the front here, your I am statements. Because that's a mantra that I use a lot when I am in center. I am all of that. I am spirit, I am soul, I am God, walking this earth. So I put that above it because it's a beautiful thing to have a personal ritual or ceremony that you do before you step into the center. And I hear you're about to stand on holy ground, the inner temple. Take your shoes off, I hear. So however that individual, spirit speaks to you individually, when I'm walking just a hand labyrinth, when I reach that point right there, I pause. I usually close my eyes. And I know I'm about to step into sacred space. So as you see the diagram below, I've colored these in because when you look at a black and white labyrinth and you're going around like this, you can lose your lane. And do we do that a lot in life? No. I've often been told by someone I love, stay in your lane, just stay in your lane. So many lessons that come from the labyrinth. But, so here we go. Before you hold it in whichever way, it doesn't matter which finger you use, and there's no right or wrong, but we are going to follow a path, reach the center, and then we're going to make our way back out. And I will be moving a little faster as I guide you than you would be at home or in your own private practice. You take as long as you want with it. You may only have 5 minutes. Maybe you've got this with you. Oh, in my workshop, I provide you with a little tiny one that you can put in your pocket. And that way you're in a waiting room, and instead of grabbing your phone to kill some time, take out your little finger labyrinth. Or you've got your thumb right with you. So close your eyes a moment. You're holding your labyrinth and your feet are on the floor. We're gonna do a little brief meditation in closing. With your eyes closed, take a few deep breaths. Breathing in. I am ready. I am open. And I am here. And I'm ready to receive. Okay, Spirit doesn't want that to go. Imagine that your body is circled with a white light, just cocooning you. Feet on the floor, moving into your heart. Set an intention, a mantra, an affirmation, whatever comes to your heart as you begin to walk this labyrinth, based on whatever I've said or whatever Spirit's bringing to you. And now open your eyes and look at your palms. If you're holding your paper, just look at one of them. We're going to do a blessing to your palms and to your fingers. And I want to read you something. It's pretty cool. If you look deeply into the palm of your hand, this is by Thich Nhat Hanh, by the way. If you look deeply into the palms of your hand, you will see your parents and all generations of your ancestors. All of them are alive in this moment. Each is present in your body. You are the continuation of each of these people.